Hanya is a 4-star Harmony character. Her redeeming qualities is that she is more accessible for the vast majority of players on featured banners. This goes without saying for the future of the game, because she was only featured in one banner so far. Hanya does give a ton of attack and speed to a solo damage dealer, and gives further attack and damage boost to attacks that hit a specific target with her burden debuff. Hanya also gives a very rare skill point generation to the team comp she's in, but this novelty will change very soon. And I do understand some characters have a skill point generating playstyle, but I'll touch on that later in the video. This is the only character in the game to have relevancy only lasting 6 weeks, and throughout my researching for the video, it was very hard to find any discussion even around the character. What exactly went wrong here? Despite having an amazing kit coupled with being a 4-star, and is also a part of the best path in the game. I guess those very same reasons are why she's in the position she's in currently. Before we do start the video, I just want to let you all know that I will be streaming Wuthering Waves when it does release. The link for that Twitch will be in the description. And I also will have a YouTube channel where I post videos in case you don't want to watch live streams. The link for that will also be in the description. Let's get back into the video. Let me preface and say, by no means is Hanya a bad character. She's amazing at what she does, but the biggest issue with this character was that she released into a competitive roster way too late. If Hanya had released earlier, then this video would be structured differently. Since Hanya's usage and relevancy was short-lived, it would be better to talk about exactly what Honkai Star would have been had this character been available at launch or as early into the game as possible. Honkai Star's designated offensive buffers would form the path as we know it, called the Harmony. Inside the game's most competitive path is a roster of characters that all seemingly have unique functions in various team comps. This thanks to these characters having different buffs provided to those teams versus one another. Although all bases seemed covered with the various buffs the roster provided, there wasn't a single character that had the utility of Hanya, which would have given her an upper hand with characters that are very skill point hungry, like Jing and QQ. It's very important to note that I had not included Seal alongside the mentioned characters, and that's because Seal is incentivized for weaving in basic attacks every now and then. So there was times in the team comp with Bronya where even if you ran out of skill points, you'd be able to get an additional turn after using a basic. Bronya just doesn't mesh well with QQ, especially at lower investment, and Jing has a kit that does keep half the buffs that Bronya provides. Instead of using Bronya in teams with Jing, most people would use Asta and Ting Yun instead, and the reason being is that these two could provide buffs that had more staying power on Jing's unique kit, and helped with giving him well-needed Lightning Lord stacks. The only issue with this team is that it was reliant on having proper skill point management, because Asta is a mostly greedy character on the skill point economy. If Hanya had a release at this point in Honkai Star, Jing's teams would feel more fleshed out, and he would essentially have a much better buffer that was eccentric around a sole damage dealer, versus buffing the whole team, completely replacing Asta from the team and increasing the damage ceiling in the process. What's important to note is that Asta will still have a best in slot team of Kafka and other dot characters. This would allow every character in the Harmony path to not overlap with one another and have their designated teams. I can't think of a better scenario in which would allow Hanya to have had her time to shine in Honkai Star, because the truth is, she was going to become obsolete later on anyways. Obsolete in the sense of being the lesser of a similar character. Now I know what you might be thinking, the reason why Hanya is not used as much nowadays is because there isn't a need for an absurd amount of skill points even in teams that consume a ton of skill points, such as teams with Dan, Heng, and Bibitunai, and dual DPS teams with Whoa. Yes, you're right, but this was after the release of Ruan Mei, and before this character had even made it to live servers, this game was much more different. She really had a massive impact. At the time of Hanya's actual release, she was used in teams that needed those skill points and buffs to the sole damage dealers, such as Jing teams with Topaz and Daniel Hypercarry. But you probably don't remember this because she would arrive 6 weeks after the release of Ruan Mei, who ultimately replaced Hanya in all of her best teams. The character only lasting 6 weeks in terms of usage is insane. It can't be because Hanya is a 4-star compared to a 5-star premium option, because Ting Yun exists. Hanya's kit is too similar to Sparkle, but Ruan Mei would be the character to come sooner and do everything Hanya does but better in her best teams. Because of the massive overlap in the kit of these two characters, Ruan Mei, unlike Hanya, doesn't give skill points, but thanks to having a kit that allows the character to only need 1 skill point every 3 turns, including at the start of the fight, she would be a skill point generator much like Hanya. In those dual damage dealer teams where Hanya shined, Ruan Mei could buff both damage carries at the same time versus only one, and she gave speed. Less speed, but it was for everyone in the team, 3 versus 1, so it evens out. Lastly, Ruan Mei gave res penetration on her ultimate, which increased the damage of everyone in the team further as well. At this point, I don't know why Hanya just isn't given out for free. That could be an honest selling point for the character. To have a character replace you in your best teams only 6 weeks after arrival, and have a character 6 weeks after that, give more skill points and stronger buffs for not only the main damage dealer, but sub damage dealer also, would ultimately leave Hanya in the positions he's in currently. Could Hanya have a team that she's best in slot later in the future? The only team I can think of, honestly, is a hyper carry team alongside Kafka and Ting Yun, and that's because Kafka doesn't care about crit stats versus other damage dealers. Even then, she'd be competing with just having another dot character and or having a team-wide buffer like Asta or Ruan Mei, which still sorta feels like a hyper carry team. I truly did wish Hanya at the very least had a trace to buff the physical damage of the team, because then she could be best in slot in a hyper carry Argenti team alongside Ting Yun, access to planetary rendezvous, and giving a less risky skill point economy for Argenti instead of using Bronya. I could see this team actually working with Sparkle or another character that provided energy of the harmony path like Ting Yun existed, and this is assuming Bronya had low investment to begin with. Let me explain my thought process for a second. Yukong is really good for imaginary teams, and she provides a rare crit rate buff for damage dealers. Asta is really good for fire characters, good toughness breaking, and good synergy with Topaz, allowing Asta to be more greedy with skill point consumption. Hanya could have been the same predicament as the 2 other mentioned harmony characters, but again she doesn't have any element specific damage boost, and no redeeming standout features in her kit. Just like in the recent Natasha video, I mentioned Hoiver's never buffing pre-existing characters in the game, and in Honkai Star Rail you can expect more situations like this to happen. Hanya has now become another relic of the past. I know a lot of you will tell me I'm grasping at straws here for making a video about Hanya, but let's be real, she was replaced in her best teams, not given for free like Yukong, Asta, and Natasha, had lower usage rates ever since the release of Ruan Mei, and the discussion around her is even less than Asta. This will be even more of a reality once Sparkle releases in the second half of patch 2.0. Another thing to note is that once we do receive more characters in the future that have a skill point positive playstyle, whether that is the defensive option, the offensive buffing character, a sub damage dealer alongside a solo damage dealer, then Hanya becomes even less of a novelty with her skill point generation. That's because every other character in the team party is providing skill points too. And this is not even including characters that don't use any skill points upon using their elemental skills either. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed taking a look at characters and seeing what went wrong with said character versus talking about why a character is good. There usually is more to discuss with the first point, hence why I'm making these videos in the first place. I only wish this character had just been at launch. This video was short enough as is. Thank you for watching and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.